Hello and welcome to Raise the Bar, the Sky High and Fly Jump Camps podcast. I'm your host, Troy Haynes, former collegiate level jumper and now longtime coach. Here we talk about anything that has to do with jumping, jump training, psychology, plyos, lifting, stretching, coaching tips, technique, anything and everything. Today's guest is a young man that I happened again on my Instagram feed. He is from Canada. His name is Paul Galas. He just competed in the 2021 Olympic Trials up in Canada and is here to regale us with those stories about his performance there, his training, his coaching, all kinds of insights. He's a kinesiology major, came down here in the States, went to Indiana University, and very engaging young man, very bright. And so we're here to listen to Paul Galas. So put your seatbelts on and get ready to go. Here we go on Raise the Bar.
Another day here in cold Canada, but
right.
What can you do, right? It's just where we're at.
What part of the winter is it for you guys up there? Like the worst part, or like the beginning, or?
Yeah, so I mean, they claim today was the coldest day of the year, or will be the coldest day of the year. So here we are, I guess, in the peak of it, you could say. So.
And what part of Canada are you from, Paul?
So I'm just outside of Toronto, about 45 minutes. So kind of typical to, as in most university towns, about an hour away from kind of the core of downtown at the University of Guelph here. So, and I know you're southern Los Angeles.
Southern California. So
Southern California,
I live in Santa Monica, and I work another, say, 45 minutes to an hour south. So
nice.
Yeah, most of the time.
You got a winter jacket? You got a winter jacket on. That seems.
Yeah, it's because I'm a wuss. You would be laughing at the temperature there. You'd be like,
we should be trading places right now. Yeah.
Yeah, you'd be like, 55 degrees. That's balmy, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for us, that's like, for me, I'm cold, and I'm originally from San Francisco, where it was a lot colder. But my mom moved us down to Southern California when I was in the second grade or something. So I mostly grew up in Southern California, and I got used to being warm. So I never liked competing in cold weather, rain. I could do it, but I didn't like it.
Yeah, no, we don't. Yeah, we're indoors until it gets nice outside. So
that's the one thing I don't have any experience with is indoor. I don't have.
Oh yeah, that's right. You wouldn't need to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Everybody goes, "Where are your indoor facilities down there?" I'm like, there's none.
There's no need.
If it rains, we're screwed. But actually, last year I had a couple clients on the weekend and one day, and they came down and it was just raining, and we grabbed the pits. I can't remember if I was early enough to strike. I think I had the pits out in the shed. So we just walked them all the way into the basketball gym.
Okay.
I had them, jumping in their high tops.
Yeah. Old school.
And the floor was pretty good. The floor was all right, but it was a different animal for sure.
Well, I mean, like the amount of times I've heard, though, I guess up here or even in other places down in the States is, the high jumper who starts with the high tops and the basketball shorts, in the former basketball player who's in the gym, and then in gym class, next thing you know, they're jumping like out of nowhere 6'6" in their Converse high tops, right?
Yeah.
And then they become, a world class high jumper. Like that's
I'd love
typical,
to. I'd
typical
love to
story, right?
And to finding one of those. That's an interesting story we'll talk about here in a bit. I'm calling up your. You are so kind in sending me the answers to my
of course
questions here. So okay, awesome. It's got a lot of stuff. Team Canada in 2013 World Youth Championships. All these things that you're saying, I'm just like, I'm so jealous. The World Youth Championships, it's so funny out here. It's like it's either not that organized or poorly communicated that these things exist. When I was a football player first, and then I started doing track and field, and then junior high and high school, and then Junior Olympics was like a rumor to me. I didn't know anything about Junior Olympics. And, in the summer, we went right into summer football. So we were doing, working out for football and, and you're doing whatever you do as a kid in the summer. And so I just, now that I'm coaching, and especially in the last 6 years since I started, private coaching, you get the younger clients who are like, hey, what are we doing for Junior Olympics? I'm like, oh, Junior Olympics. Yeah. Well, that's a whole mystery, world for me. I'm still kind of nudging my way in there.
Yeah. And I've always noticed with the American high school system too, like you got the Junior Olympics and then you got the AAU championships, but then you also have like those New Balance championships. And I think out in CA, you guys have like Arcadia, for example, right? It feels like there's a bunch of different Super Bowls.
Yes.
Right. And you don't, and it's tough to kind of, hone in on one. I think like even now Nike's doing some stuff, Adidas is doing stuff. Like I've lost track, to be honest with you, how it's going down there.
There's not a lot of money to be had down here, but what little there is, it's being fought over.
Yeah. But it seems like just through bunch of different parties. So it's been, that's compared to here where like, we just obviously have like significantly less people who live here, but like, we always do come together from across the country, and we kind of hash it out at the one national meet every year. And then it's kind of easy to pick teams there, right? You're just, okay, person's top 2, they have the standard, there they go, right? Or they're top, like this person's under 23 or they're under 18 and they were the top finishers in the rankings. Okay, here we go. So it's a lot easier to decipher, I guess, the way it is there. But I mean, I guess that's a challenge when you have 300 something million people and we only have 33 million or about that here. So
right.
Give or take.
Say that again? Right? How many?
Yeah, I think there's under 40 million people living here in Canada. Like, I could be completely off, but my understanding is it's significantly less than what's going on.
So you got a lot of open space out there.
Yeah. I mean, unlivable, I guess you could say, but definitely.
Well, even though stuff that's livable, there's just not as many people, like you're saying, right? So.
Yeah, it's I kind of live in the area that the majority of the country's population lives in. It's kind of that Southern Ontario, which is kind of like our main province / I guess state. And it's, this chunk of land in which it's densely populated, and that makes up the majority of, the country. So, luckily growing up, and even when I'm recruiting here now, it's like, I don't really have to go far to go find, for lack of a better term, the mecca of track and field in Canada. There's still some very good performances out west, out east, in the the Midwest type area, but we're just looking at overall pool of people. Like it's, we're kind of just lucky by geography here, but that's kind of where we're at, or where we're at up here. And the Canadian high jump scene's really been taken off since Derek, like the success of Derek Druin in the past, and things like that. So it's definitely been, I guess, for the amount of people that we have in this country, like I think it's been fairly well represented. Yeah. Especially on the men's side, like the women have been good as well. Like we've had, a few Olympians in the last few cycles, but, like with Derek and Mike Mason and now this new guy, Django, it's like, it's definitely been, I've enjoyed getting my butt kicked by them for the last couple of years, but, they're definitely world-class, and, always supporting them.
Well, so for those of you in podcast land here, we're this is another installment of Raise the Bar. This is my podcast here. My name's Troy Haynes, and I'm the host of the Raise the Bar podcast. It's Sky High and Fly Jump Camps on Instagram and on YouTube channel. And Paul Galas here, am I saying your name right, first and last?
Yeah.
Paul Galas here is from Canada, and I spotted him on Instagram. I don't know if you sent me something or I asked you. I saw some jumps somewhere, somehow. I have a complicated process of looking at the people that like any of my posts, or and when I look through their pictures, if I see high jump, videos, I will 9 times out of 10, send, hey, would you like me to post your videos? And really enjoy trying to promote the high jump and track community. And Paul graciously, allowed me to do a post of his jumps, and then in the filling in of his biography, found out that he had been to the Canadian Olympic Trials, and just this last year, 2021. Yep. And so that was a unique opportunity because those of you, my huge following of 50 subscribers that is listening to the podcast, as they know, we just finished a 4 athlete run of U.S. Olympic high jump trial finalists. So we started off with Doug Nordquist, who made the team in 84. He jumped 7.6 in the final and came in 5th, I think. And I think he had to jump 7.7 to get on the team. I can't remember. That was 84. And then we followed up with Leo Williams, who was the alternate on that team. And Doug and Leo are good buddies. We've all played golf together, great guys. And they graciously gave me their time. And then we moved from the old guys like myself back in the, 84 games we were talking about, right? So we go up to the 2021 games, and I had Jordan Jumpman Westner from Florida State. And he did a great job and told us about his training. And then we followed that up with Tyler Arroyo, who both of them might have been relative unknowns. To me, they were kind of stars because I was watching them on Instagram. I felt like I was a talent scout or something, but I'm watching these guys. I'm like, wow, these guys got tons of pop. And, Tyler Arroyo just sent me a video of a really close miss at 7.6.5 last year. So he went from a 7.2.5 jumper to 7.5 3/4, made it to the trials, and then made it to the final. So that was the run of 4. And now Paul is going to give us a Canadian point of view on the Canadian trials. And you mentioned in your send up that you did jump against Derek Drown. And I was so impressed. I'm a real neophyte when it comes to this. It's funny. I've been coaching track and field for a long time, but every year, like we said, once track was done, I'd go into football mode. So I didn't really pay attention to what was going on in the U.S. scene, in the world scene. I mean, there was all kinds of really good jumpers that have come and gone that I just you'd throw a name at me and I would know them.
Yeah.
Now I'm starting to get, conversant with Barshim and Tamberi and, Bondarenko and a lot of the stuff that I've seen online, and I'm just blown away by it. And then I did happen to catch the final in 2016 when Derek Drown just really beat the pants off of the 2 best guys that I've seen. Both guys jumped 7.11.5 in the same meet, right, at one time.
Yeah.
But in 2016 in the Olympics, you would not have known that because Derek Drown just thoroughly trashed both of them. So what was it like to jump against him in those big meets?
Yeah, I mean, ever since I can remember, like he kind of was the guy in Canada, like for me at least as a high jumper. Like I said, there's not as many, I guess, people jump in over 7.4 in the country. So like there's, he was the guy I would watch when I was younger and always kind of like looked up to. I mean, the whole reason why I went to Indiana was because he went to Indiana, right? So it was just the guy I'd always tried to emulate. And I always told myself if I could get anywhere like 75% as good as he was, that'd be pretty good.
Right.
Like he's one of like just an absolute like silent killer on the track. Like he's operates so methodically, and he just was just very, it was almost like freakish to watch. Like it was majority of the times I would finish jumping and he's like just starting to get warmed up really, like to get going. Cause it's, and to be that good over that amount of time, and just consistently good. Right. And then I think the Olympics in 2016 really showed how like he just was able to methodically just go through that whole field and come out clean at, 238 or whatever it was. Like it was one of the more impressive competition thing I've ever watched on TV in my lifetime. But I wasn't too surprised because like we had just touched on, like I've seen him at the trials. I've seen him, jumping around Indiana. Like he was somebody who I thought, it's once in a lifetime. You don't see that. Like I've never seen Barshim jump in person, but I'm sure it'd be a very similar effect to watching someone like that. Right. It's just, no matter what you did, you just don't have that. Like that is just, I don't know if you can, like at some point, it's like you kind of just kind of hand it to them. It's like, whatever you did worked.
Right.
So yeah, no, great. I mean, he's just a great guy off the track too. Limited times we've kind of had interactions and whatnot, but just great guy. And I really hope, I don't know if we've seen the last of him. Who knows if he's back or not.
Right.
But it was definitely, while he, was jumping around here, just, complete machine.
Oh,
complete.
well,
That's how I'd explain it. Just a complete machine. And then guys like Michael Mason, and then Django Levitt, like these guys who are kind of right there battling with him every time. I mean, Mike Mason was 233, 234. I can't remember, but
yeah,
like, I think just retired this year, was in his mid 30s, but was jumping 230 for like before I probably even knew what high jump was. Like,
right.
just two guys who really elevated Canadian high jump and inspiring a lot of us to give it a shot. And then I think there's a bunch of guys that kind of call us the tier 2 guys. Like, there was guys the tier 1 guys, and then a bunch of us between 215 and 220, and it's like I don't know if we existed without those guys, right? Because then maybe we're playing basketball or we're playing volleyball. So,
right.
Like, obviously big kudos to kind of the pioneers, I guess. And now it's interesting seeing a new wave come through, and I guess I'm trying to coach them. I'm trying to coach the new wave now. So
that's awesome.
It's definitely, kind of switching shoes.
So I want to go a little earlier with you. You mentioned that you went to Indiana University, and you said you actually followed in Derek's footsteps there. So what is the other than the fact that he went there, what is the was it because of the coaching? Was it because of, did you guys just pick Indiana because it's close to Canada somehow?
Yeah,
or
that was definitely a big factor of it. I mean, like, it was about 8 hours from where I live, so kind of parents could make it down in a day if I needed something.
Right.
But I mean, but I honestly, when I visited, I just kind of, like, obviously that started the conversation with Derek and being there. But then coming to campus, I was like, okay, I this is where I want to be. And I figured it clicked the best with me, and I, don't regret going there one bit. But yeah, it was definitely kind of, entering the NCAA realm. Like, I kind of mentioned in the write-up before, essentially, like, I had a lot of success in high school. And then, for better or for worse, probably came in with this naive type of confidence that I'm just going to have the same success in high school. Then then I show up, and you're showing up against 50-year seniors who are 7'6", 7'5", and you're like, oh, holy smokes! Like, my first thought out of high school was 6'11". So in the Canadian landscape, that was very good. Like I had mentioned, I was when I went to the World, I was on the U18 national team, and then we went to New Balance in New York. I even won that meet. Like, I felt like I was the king until I realized, like I mentioned earlier, there's a bunch of different Super Bowls in the high school.
Sure.
And I just happened to win that one, but that didn't mean there was a guy jumping lesser than me in California in their Arcadia meet or whatever you want to call it. Right. So, it was definitely, coming in. I think that, for better or for worse, I think some athletes go in there and then get humbled quickly and then start working. But that was definitely something that he hit a wall really quickly. Mm-hmm. But, I love the coaching staff there, and, all my teammates, and, they're still, a lot of them are my friends today. So
awesome.
Definitely shaped a lot.
What did you major in?
So I majored down there in kinesiology, and then I kind of zoned in on physical education. So like I did want to always study that, human body aspect, going to the physiology classes, the anatomy classes. But then I always knew, it's funny, I almost just denied being a coach for a long time. I was like, it's so hard to get into this profession. It's this. I was just kind of making up excuses, but
right.
So I was like, I'll just go be I'll go be a teacher. It's close enough, right? And then, eventually I ended up graduating. I was like, no, I think I want to take this coaching stuff more seriously. So then came back to Canada and was trying to build up a resume, coaching some local high school athletes here as I was doing some, master's degree, postgraduate degree work. And then, one thing led to another. And now I'm lucky to be, a jumps coach here at a major Canadian university. So, I think I always knew that I wanted to do something in coaching and in track and field specifically. Yeah. And I think just denying it for so long until I finally had the opportunity. I was like, yes. Okay. Like, I threw out I was working for some it's a professional basketball league here in Canada, like a domestic type league. And then, the moment, and then kind of volunteer coaching on the side. And then the moment something opened up, I just, completely left the 9 to 5 and then take that. So, I guess it was always in my plans if I believed it or not.
Right.
But that was kind of the educational roadmap, I guess, I took.
That's interesting. I when I went to UCLA, I was when I got the letter back from the coaches, I had written them a letter as a junior and said, I want to jump 7 feet and I want to go to UCLA and blah, 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 win the state meet. And they sent it back to me and they said, thanks for your application, but you were late because I was not, many of my friends will tell you I'm not a master of attention to detail. So I missed the application date, and then had a great end of my senior year and jumped well enough to get noticed. And, they got back to me and said, oh, we'd love you to come now. But, basically I jumped 210, right before the state finals. And they ended up saying, yeah, you can walk on. Like now I get a ticket anywhere in the coast, full ride with 6'10", 3/4. But back then I was like, you were talking about this is just on the UCLA team now. This wasn't like going to nationals. When I got to UCLA, I was number 7 on the depth chart walking in the door with 210. So that's why they didn't offer me any money. They're like, we got plenty of guys like you. So I was like, okay, great, So the enticement.
Who was the coach there? Who was the coach back then at UCLA at that time?
That's a really interesting odyssey. When I first got there, I did not know this at the time. A gentleman named Jim Kiefer had just left the UCLA group and had moved on his own. He was one of the coaches that worked with Nordquist. And Jim Kiefer is a legend. He's built a bunch of great athletes, great jumpers. He's not relegated just to the jumps, but he's very good at the jumps. And he had left. And so the guy that was the jumps coach was Bob Larson, who is a distance guy. And he became one of the great UCLA head coaches after Jim Bush, left the job. And he was the coach of the last national championship team that they had in track, and great distance guy. But he literally told me that the day that I came in, it was so funny because I had read an article in Sports Illustrated about Del Davis jumping 7.25. This is 1982. And he was a junior and he came in second at the, you might know the name Mel Oddie, right? He's from Jamaica, but he jumped from Canada, right? So
that's funny you say that name. Yeah, we can touch back on that later too.
Yeah, he was down at UTEP. He jumped at UTEP, Texas El Paso, and he jumped 7.25 also. And I think he won on misses over Dell. So I'm reading this article in Sports Illustrated. And of course, they just kind of run over the Canadian guy, and they go, "Here's Del Davis jumped 7.25," and they quoted Bob Larson in the article. And so when I get there, he says, "Hey, I'm Bob Larson," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, this is awesome. I'm coming to the school." Del Davis jumped 7.5. Lee Balkin is here. He still holds the California state record at 7.3 in high school. And at the high school state meet, not the high school state record, but at the meet. And then, so I'm like, oh, these great jumpers and this great coach. And Bob Larson literally reaches out, shakes my hand. He goes, "Hey, I'm Bob Larson." And he goes, "I'm the jumps coach." He goes, "I don't know a thing about the high jump." First words out of his mouth. And he would tell you that story too. And it was just like, oh, well, that's great. So what's the plan? And it was like, the plan is you're going to work with Del and Lee. And that was not a bad training ground. Neither of those guys were coaches at the time. They were just athletes. When I say just athletes, they were very, very good athletes. And Lee ended up coaching and still coaching at Glendale College in junior college in LA. So, but that was that was an eye opener. And so did a couple years with Bob, and then Steve Lang was my coach, my junior and my senior years. And then I got some extra help from a guy named Baru Elias down at Long Beach City College, who was a Romanian. And he was a legend in the JC ranks and helped lead Long Beach City to like 6 or 7 state titles. I lost track. He was a great high, long, and triple guy. And he had two 7.8 jumpers in his stable. And then I think I might've been the third highest at, 222, but these guys were. Brian Stanton made an Olympic team, and Dennis Lewis was another one. And I don't know that Dennis ever made an Olympic team, but he was, 7.8's no joke, right? So
no, not at all. Yeah.
Anyway, those were the guys that I ended up working with. But after that, I wouldn't know. I left UCLA, and I was like you. I was kind of thrust. I think I thought about coaching, but I didn't really gravitate towards it right away, but then just kind of ended up, getting over there. But I started at the JC level. So, but yeah, so you jumped against Derek Drown and you've been to the Canadian trials. Now, you said it's a smaller pool of jumpers up there. So kind of go through, I didn't get a play-by-play out of anybody of these first four guys. So when you qualified, what was the qualifying height to get into the Olympic trials in 2021?
Well, so this time it was interesting because of the regulations around the pandemic here. Like it was an invite only type thing. So like they wanted a limited field size. So I can't remember if we were maybe eight. That's a number that sounds familiar. Yeah. So they kind of just drew the top 8 in the rankings and said, here you're in. So that was made up of, at the time, Derek was in there, but I think he had scratched from the meet. He couldn't recover in time. He was battling something. And then that left Django and Mike going 233 and 230, I think, at that meet, 27, I can't remember. And then there's those two. And then the 6, like I had mentioned earlier, the kind of those tier 2 guys where we're the 215 to 220 crowd. So yeah, I had a bunch of guys that we competed for years against each other. So typically, yeah, it probably took you around about 7 feet to get in to that meet. And then, I had done that in the calendar year that they were considering. And then, awesome. Kind of got in there, and it was honestly, the guys I competed against, it was a coin flip. Like they were all very talented. And, we've spent many years just beating up on each other. And right. The thing here is like, and I guess the high jump culture around here is, you can continue jumping after college, right? Like a lot of the times I've noticed a lot of peers of mine in the States, just the sheer number of competitors that, are at the Olympic trials, right? Like you have to jump a certain, like a 7.5 or 7.4, which is not easy to do at all, right? And I'm not saying like 7 feet is easy either, right? But, like you're able to, still work your job, go train, and then go jump and still be, relatively competitive at the Canadian level. And again, that's just that. And it's still actually quite competitive looking at all circumstances and the, number of people and pool of athletes that are around here. But obviously
330 million people, like you're talking about, there's a lot more.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a lot more, it's, peas in the pod or whatever you want to call it. Right. Yeah. So, like that's why I thought, some of my peers I train with, it's like, okay, I graduate and I'm going to school and I'm working, but I'm also still jumping. Like, why are you still doing that? Like, how do you have any opportunities? I was like, well, if I just, maintain and find a schedule, I can still be kind of competitive here and sneak on to, a national team or two kind of, at the, the French games that I went to, or, something that's not the world championships or not the Olympics. Right. So, I gave it 3 more years after college and then, as I was coaching and training, but, now I think it was finally time to, hang up those spikes and, kind of pass it down to the next crew in the long, high and triple jumpers and as well as some decathletes. So, that was kind of the lay down just to get into trials this year. Like, obviously the whole thing was just different. It's actually my second trials. The first trials I went to, there was a qualifying height in 2016. I think it was like 205. Like really? And it wasn't. Wow. Yeah, it was. But again, though, like if you look at the number of people in the country and then the amount of people who could jump that height, it was actually kind of impressive. Like to have that pool. But yeah, so that one was definitely a larger pool, and you kind of had to wait until you jump. And this one felt more of like an invite type.
8 people. So, it must have been pretty quick. My other question of many was your kinesiology major. So I was it was actually kind of finishing up that other story. So one of the reasons that I went to UCLA was I wanted to go, obviously, but then they also mentioned in that letter, the second letter back after the horrible bad letter that I wrote that they ignored. And they said, yeah, we want you to come. They said, we have a kinesiology major, which we feel would be perfect for me. And I don't know how they knew that, but I was, college prep in high school and had taken biology and physics and a lot of that kind of stuff. So I don't know if they must have looked at my transcripts and figured that would be a good match. And I remember back in 1980 watching the Olympics, and they had one of the first computer things. And they were showing a stick figure on a black background that was a green stick figure, and it was hitting a volleyball. And all I saw was the stick arm, and it's, an overhead, volleyball spike. And I'm like, wow, that's really cool. And I'm looking at that going, so that's what kinesiology does. They look at, these angles and these forces and this and that. And I was in then, and so they said, yeah, we have this major here at this school, which they no longer do actually, but at the time they did. And it was one of the top programs in the country just because of the professors involved, but, I took that, and I could not wait to get to, I got through the anatomy and all that stuff, which is okay, but I was way more interested in biomechanics. I wanted to see, what kind of forces and angles are going into all these events. And I was naturally curious about, the best kind of training. I think part of the thing with, 2 years of working with, the two high jumpers, and then I was just kind of always on that quest for what is the best way to train, what is a really good drill for this. And what I've found is that there's no textbook, is that everybody is got different pieces of the puzzle, and nobody seems to share their secrets. So we're going to stop right there. After about a half an hour of talking with Paul Galas, we have a couple more 30-minute chunks to come. We just finished up. I was lamenting the fact that nobody has a textbook for high jumping exactly. Everybody's still got their little piece of the puzzle, and we're going to discuss that more at length. So come back for part 2 with Paul Galas in a couple short days. And this is Troy Haynes here at Raise the Bar, and we'll talk next time.